Hi, I'm Eric from AMP. Today I'm going to show you how to upgrade your Polaris RZR or side-by-side off-road vehicle by installing the Stinger Electronics SPXM1 Power Sports and Marine Media Player. Today we have this 2021 RZR XP 1000. This is the high lifter edition, so this has an insane ground clearance, big knobby tires, a very capable engine, and it's tons of fun to drive off-road. But this particular vehicle did not come with any radio at all. So today we're going to install the SPXM1 and its friend, the Switch Hub. The Switch Hub is a solid-state accessory controlling device that's going to control all the lights and accessories that we add to this rig. Because we're installing the M1 and the Switch Hub, we have to route some wiring through the vehicle and we have to take a few more body panels off. So we rate this overall install a 3 out of 4 pry tools on our install difficulty scale. If you're just installing the SPXM1 into your RZR using our dash kit and wiring harness, it's super easy. So we rate that install a 1 out of 4 pry tools on our install difficulty scale. Before we get started, let's take a look at the tools we're going to need in today's install. Ratchet with extension, 10mm socket, flathead screwdriver, crimpers, electrical tape, zip ties. To begin our installation, we're going to remove this upper pocket. It's just secured in by these 2 plastic fasteners on top, so grab a flathead screwdriver and remove the fasteners. With these 2 fasteners removed, just take the pocket right out. So now that we have that pocket removed, we have a spot to mount the SPXM1. Let's head over to the bench and set up some of our wiring so we can come back and snap it into place. Now we're ready to mount the SPXM1 into our RZR dash mounting kit. The SPXM1 does come with 2 mounting methods. It has this U-shaped bracket, and there's also 4 screws that go through the front. We're going to use both. You can use one or other. We're going to use both methods in this installation. So thread these bolts that have the nuts on them into the back of the M1. Then we can slide that through the dash bracket. Now take our bracket and slide that over the back of the M1 and install the 2 locking nuts. When you feel good about the orientation of your SPXM1 and it's horizontally lined in the vehicle, you can now install the 4 mounting screws into the front of the M1, and then we'll install the trim ring. With the 4 screws in position, just snap on the trim ring. Now we can set this piece aside. We're ready to make our connections on the wiring harness. Our RZR dash kit comes with a 2-wire harness. This is going to connect to the power distribution block in the engine bay of the RZR, and it's going to give us an accessory and ground wire to connect to our harness. So we're going to make the accessory and ground connections here. If you're installing an amplifier, you'll hook up your remote trigger wire. If you're installing directly to speakers, you'll use the speaker outputs. In this installation, we're going to use RCA connections, so we're not going to use these speaker leads. So we're going to clip these off so they don't short out. We're going to connect accessory and ground to our RZR harness, and we're going to connect the remote wire so we can turn on our amplifier. Because we're going to be installing the Switch Hub, we're going to go ahead and connect some trigger wires to the SPXM1's harness so we can run those through the firewall when we install the power wire. Now that we have our power and ground hooked up and our trigger wires for the Switch Hub, we're ready to take this setup back over to the RZR. Now we have our wiring harness in the RZR, we're going to pass this power harness for the M1 through the firewall. I'm also going to take my trigger wires that we're going to use to control the Switch Hub. We're going to tape those up to this harness and pass them through at the same time. So we have our power and ground connected. We've connected our accessory turn-on wire, or remote wire, to our amplifier, so that's going to turn on our amplifiers. We clipped off our power speaker wires here because we're going to be using RCA connections and amplifiers. It does have an illumination for the SPXM1. If you want to tag this to your headlight switch, the backlight buttons on the M1 will turn on and off with the headlights of your RZR or off-road vehicle. Now we can take our power harness and our trigger wires and pass it through the grommet and the firewall. At this point of the installation, if you want to upgrade your rig even more, we do have a USB and 3.5mm aux extension cable. So we can take this factory power port right out of the RZR and install this. We can plug in our phone to charge it, we can play files from a thumb drive, or if you have a 2-way communication device with a 3.5mm output, plug right into here to feed into your M1. So we're just going to take this factory power port, pop it out of the dash, disconnect the terminals, just remove the locking ring from the back of the extension cable, and then we'll pass the cables through the dash, thread this back onto the body. It's a bit of a snug fit. You might have to use a bit of force to push that into the dash of your razor, then thread the nut onto the back to lock it into the dash. Now we'll connect our USB extension and 3.5mm aux. Because we installed a reverse camera on this razor, we're going to connect the reverse camera feed right into the yellow video input. Now we're going to take the M1 and set it up on the dash so we can clean up our wiring before we tuck it into the dash of the razor. Now we can just slide the SPXM1 into place and reinstall the 2 plastic fasteners that we removed in the beginning of the install. Well, that's all it takes to mount the SPXM1 in your Polaris razor. Now let's run up to the front, pop open the engine bay, we'll hook up the accessory and ground wires, and we'll wire up the switch hub to control all the lighting on our rig. Now we're ready to make the simple 2-wire connection for the power harness for our SPXM1. Here in the engine bay of our razor, we have a constant power, we have a ground, and we have switched accessory. We want to connect the red wire to the switched accessory so the M1 turns on when the razor turns on. So now we have our 2-wire power harness hooked to accessory and ground. All the other accessories that we're going to control with the switch hub, we're going to also connect to the ground point. We're going to run a large power wire into the main input for the switch hub, and we're also going to connect a ground reference wire. So I'll mount the switch hub to our amp rack, and then we'll get to hooking up our accessories. If you're just installing a switch hub and not installing amplifiers in your razor, you can mount your switch hub anywhere on the firewall or anywhere inside the dash. Because we're installing these Stinger amplifiers, we made an amp rack so we have a place to mount our switch hub. So just go ahead and mount the switch hub down, and then we can make our power and ground connections. We can connect our triggers and our outputs. The switch hub is configured to accept positive or negative inputs. All of the outputs from our SPXM1 are positive, so we're going to connect those into the inputs on the positive trigger side. Now with our trigger wires hooked up, we can go ahead and take the power wires for the accessories we want to control and connect those into the outputs of our switch hub. And that's all it takes to hook up our switch hub. Now it's ready to control all of our accessories. So we can put the hood back on the razor, hop inside, power up the M1, and check out all the features. We hope you've enjoyed this installation video of the Stinger SPXM1 in this Polaris razor. For more videos, check us out at stingerelectronics.com and on our YouTube channel.